to My Story, Episode 9. When we left you at Episode 8, we had described 16 and 1 through 12 of the next big things that we identified in sort of a story. We described early in the story, it's a multifaceted, multi-possibility story, but in one iteration of the story, we described a scenario of a conspiracy of, well, angels to buy the world a new future, and all of a sudden surprise you. Actually, I didn't even tell you the end of that story. Actually, it's the end of the story either way. With everybody throughout the world at peace on earth, with Christians and Jews and Muslims in Jerusalem, joining together, kissing each other on the cheeks, chopping their guns in half, and accepting they all work for the same God. And we're not going to get into the biblical sense. We're going to talk about business, because my premise is, well, this is part of the crazy part of the premise, but let's go there briefly for now. My premise was twofold. A lot of people from the Christian church says God was a communist. I'm not going to argue that. There's a lot of, well, the communism and Christianity have a lot in common, and anyway, you got to imagine that's where Marx got his inspiration, even though he got misguided in his mind, possibly, or maybe it doesn't matter, because whatever lie, part of the beautiful lie of our own creation, it doesn't matter what happened. It's what matter what happens going forward, right? Okay, although what matters that happened helps us going forward if we know what to make of it, and that's an important point. So, okay, so God was a capitalist. He was like, he knew how to capitalize, but he also knew what was true value and what to capitalize on. And I believe that he knew you capitalize on people and knowledge, and you capitalize on the intelligence of their design. And that's what we talked about in the previous series, but the idea is simply this. Also, here's the thing. God was a comedian. Okay, why would God be a comedian? Because, very simply, there are two kinds of stories. A tragedy that lives very sadly. I try to write that. Lots of people write that. That's what you're really good at writing. The destruction of Earth as best as we can. We can write destruction in war. We can play it in our reality. We can play it on our screens because we're very good at that. That's what we do well. But who on earth, who in Hollywood, writes a story about the recreation of mankind into a new global enterprise, about the notion that we could create our own heaven on earth if we should put our minds and our capabilities together with what I described in my last one is the next two big things and maybe more. But okay, so let's say you go along with this. Okay, so what is this paradigm, and how is this paradigm different from the paradigm that we talked about before? And it ties back to the first next big things. Let me just refresh your memory. We'll go 1 through 5 really quickly. Well, actually, before we get to number 1, we did give a shout out to Big Thing 0. Anyway, number 1 was man's first practice, monopoly. Number 2 was travel. Number 3, which we still don't do yet, democracy. Number 4 was print, the ability to spread our information of mind across space. Oh, by the way, all of these have a network effect involved. Okay, number 5 is very important. You know, Muslims bow 5 times a day. They are for really important reasons. But there's some symbolic, interesting things, especially in the primes. But 5, in my order of things, that you don't have to believe it, but I'm just trying to make order out of your past and your future. Well, anyway, 5 was capitalism. And we've practiced it, but we have never practiced enlightened capitalism. And what is enlightened capitalism? Enlightened capitalism is one where your capitalist enterprise is not interfered with. In fact, there are no governments. business, where a capitalist enterprise takes care and is part of the enterprise of the people. So imagine a world that's a business, and everybody's a shareholder in that business. Everybody. How do we do that? Through technology. We electronically bring them into the business. We bring their minds into the business. Actually, we can go off into the technology things later, but from the structural approach, what it is very simple, is that we transform it so that the poor are part of our enterprise as investors. And, well, we talked about before the ability to massively raise the value of our whole world by, well, creating peace on earth, advancing free markets with a single currency, advancing growth rates way beyond what you could imagine, advancing the state of arts of technology. But what's important is not these pieces of paper, and this is part of how we make our enterprise work. It's what's important is what we deliver to you. It's like not, okay, what we deliver to you, we need to deliver only best products. Why do we have hundreds and thousands of different, well, lots of different crappy cellular phones? Why couldn't everyone have an iPhone? Or if you have to be a fast follower guy, an Android? Or, well, the point is this, you know what? If we knew what to do right, and we did it right in volume, everybody on Earth could have iPhones cheaper than any other phone if that was the only phone we made. And I'm not saying we should get it down to everybody choosing the same things, but if we stopped fighting so much together for little pieces of little pies and screwing the customers in the middle, and that's the key, we're screwing ourselves. You have accepted things in technology that to me are blasphemy. How many times have you ever tried to buy a cell phone and stood in front of a clerk who is saying, I have to wait for the computer to tell me what to do, and well, it takes a long, long time, and how many people are waiting for computers to tell them what to do? These computers should be smarter if they even have to compute whatever that transaction is, but they should be faster, and well, we just let it go. Because in your world, killing time doesn't matter. In your world, killing consumers' money doesn't matter. It's part of the game. But when you continue to kill the consumers' money, look at the worst part of the United States economic problem, Vegas. When people run out of money to gamble, well, what happens? You can't pay the mortgages on your casinos. And eventually, Wall Street owns the biggest casino on the planet. But let's not go there for now. My vision is, if I bought out Wall Street, I would turn, well, all those office buildings we wouldn't even need. I would imagine automating half of your processes. Imagine, well, changing all of the world, so much so they would probably turn half the office buildings into New York into apartment buildings and penthouses and places to party, because in the future there is nothing we couldn't do. A future so bright. In the olden days you would say you have to wear shades. Okay, so what were the next big things? Well, okay, we talked about the monopoly. We'll go quickly through the engine. And then we had Franklin with the power and Edison with the light 7, and then the key one, the infinite one, 8, the network effect, and that was, can you hear me now? It was the phone, the telephone, ET phonome, and then wireless, the radio. And by the way, I would say I might have a radioactive mind, and I hope at some point in time that my thoughts are radioactive. Because, well, in fact, if you look back through it, most people are thinking, probably thinking, now this guy's crazy. And I admit that, I accept that diagnosis. I'm actually very proud of it. But some prophets and visionaries may have been crazy.
Many of your great leaders in the past, before you knew what crazy was, were crazy. Lincoln, heck, Churchill. But the point is not that. The point is, it doesn't matter whether somebody is crazy. It is whether what they're saying is the truth. And if, well, let's just go there no more. If I am the prophet of prophets, my words and my possibilities speak for themselves, and only you can determine that through an evaluation of a vision, of an order, of a one-world enterprise with one currency, where all of the people on earth own it. And, well, we've described some of it before, but let's talk about the next big things. So we get to 9 to 10 was flight, and interestingly, that took place at Kill Devil Hill. And, well, now we're taking it on to space. And then was 11 flat TV. And that's how we sort of programming. And actually, right now, I'm operating on flat TV. But I view the future as real 3D. Have since 2005. But let's put it on to the next one. Which one's the key turnaround one? And that's big thing 12. Atomic power and weapons. And that's the one I decoded was, well, when God or our fate created the power for us to destroy ourselves, and in the wrong hands, in the wrong minds, we would destroy ourselves. And I will remind some of those hands, to kill one innocent person is to kill all mankind, but perhaps that's the zero that I talked about before, because the one monopoly, the only way to make it work is one monopoly of us. Well, and lots of structure within it. Okay, and lots of freedom, but let's talk about. So, 12, but then 13 was very important. Timelines, as I said before, are a little interesting and varied, but I designated 13 as the computer, and 1 and 3 is, well, the monopoly of democracy. That's right. And see, that sets you up. And let's go on. Because there was 14, which I would say is life sciences, genetics. 15, I referred to it earlier before. 15 was first convergence. That was when the cell phone was created out of Big Thing 8, the telephone, and radio, Big Thing 9, to create the cell phone. But see, what lies beyond that 16 was the internet, and that fulfilled the prophecy of 13, because democracy and monopoly and 5 tied to capitalism. See, the 1 and the 5 and the 1 and the 3, you put them all together and you disseminate the world with a single new enterprise of all the people of Earth. And like a virtual nation, you could take out the world from the bottom to the top. That's one different view. A story I'll tell you more of, but the very notion is that there is power of disintermediation. And I could leave these YouTubes, and 10 years from now, 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, we don't have that long. We might not have 100. I've calculated best maybe 50. But anyway, maybe later, maybe I'm dead and buried at sea or something. Somebody reads these videos and says, oh, this guy might have had a point. What were we missing? Just because he looks crazy? Well, I thought, why wouldn't somebody disguise the truth in the form of insanity? But the words should be more than the presentation. Don't get lost in the presentation. Don't get wrapped up in what I say or the mistakes I may make. Get wrapped up in the notion, could we build a future together if we owned our world together? When I asked my shrink, this is sort of getting ahead of the story, in 2006, before checking out with that one. He checked out with me, with that long story. Anyway, I asked him, what if we owned our world together? He said, I think you're borderline psychotic. I still think that's the perfect question. Until somebody can prove me wrong, I must accept the diagnosis. But anyway, Good luck. Welcome to episode 10 coming up.